got a whole host of guests hosts alongside me. Everything about this is special except for the performances of the teams that most of us root for on the soccer field, which I don't know. Maybe that's unfortunately not special anymore because we are getting used to the sadness that is. We have now 41 of the 42 teams locked into the World Cup. The U.S. men's national team has played their last game as they head towards what will be the roster announcement from Mauricio Pochettino. Canada is currently on the field in their last game that we can touch on as well. And I have two incredible guests with me. I have one of my co-hosts on the Kickback Committee, a central midfielder for the Chicago Stars, as well as one of the reasons the World Cup is happening here in the U.S., as we showed her incredible speech that she gave to get it here, Brianna Pinto. What's up, Brianna?
In San Diego. I'm so happy to be here. It's good to watch this game and have our feedback. So happy to join you guys.
And on the other side, we've got someone who stood on the sideline for the U.S. men's national team, unfortunately only at one World Cup, but has covered two and has been as plugged into this program as anyone, and one of our favorites here, Michele Giannone. What's up, Michele?
What's up, David? Hi, Brianna. Nice to meet you. It's great
Good
to
to
be
meet
here.
you as well.
To be clear, we did a
Saturday.
pre-meeting. For everyone listening, they did not just speak for the first time. Michele goes with that energy off the bat. And if you can tell from the way I pronounced his name, Michele Giannone is partially Italian as well. So it's going to be a long show, but I appreciate you still being here, Michele.
That's how much I love you. I woke up from my fetal positions that I've been for the last 5 hours, and I'm here. Let's see how it goes. I'm here, but I'm hurting.
12 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Brianna just had to make it worse. Twist the knife.
That hurt.
Also, let's be clear. You said to me earlier, actually, the only reason I'm doing this is for the distraction so that I don't
Absolutely
have to worry about what I'm worrying about right now. So I feel like we're doing you a favor.
You guys are, for sure.
Well, we're going to talk about a lot here on this show. We're going to do some of our special segments that we always do on Kickback Committee. We're going to talk about our favorite second teams coming up and help people pick them going towards the World Cup. For Michele, unfortunately, it might be a first team. We're going to look at our favorite stories from around the soccer world because we had this incredible week. Today was something I can't really remember experiencing, watching all these qualifiers from all these different corners of the world, these atmospheres, these fan bases, the players. It felt like the games really had the energy that you want to have for the moment. It kind of helped connect the Mauricio Pochettino, I don't call them friendlies line, where you're like, oh yeah, the difference you can feel. Like if you watch the two games, if you watch a World Cup qualifier and you watch a friendly, you can feel the difference. And it's pretty hard to sort of break that. So we're going to talk about some of the great stories. We've seen some of the great moments. But of course, we're going to start with the U.S. men's national team and the reactions from the two games. So the 5-2 loss against Belgium on Saturday, me and Doyle sort of went through what we thought the lineup would be. That was a fool's errand. It turns out Mauricio Pochettino doesn't really care what other people think or what's conventional or anything like that. So he throws out a different starting lineup against Portugal. It ends up being a 2-0 loss, both games in Atlanta, this time against the sixth best team in the world and the reigning UEFA Nations League winner. And there was some positives, and then also obviously in a 2-0 loss, some negatives. Brianna, big picture of like, what do you sort of take out of this game? What do you remember from it?
I just think there really wasn't enough edge from the U.S. I think, coming into this game, you really have to put a strong foot forward and kind of materialize into the team that you want to show in the World Cup. And it still seems like, especially the center back role, that they haven't found like their best partnership. It does seem that Chris Richards is the lock for the World Cup, but it just wasn't sharp enough, like defensively. And then in the attack, it seemed like everybody was a step slow, where they weren't ready to hit the ball on the first touch or organizing their feet in and around the box. So like it was just a little bit of something was missing, especially since we're so close to the major tournament.
And I think the most frustrating part about that is, Michele, all of that felt better than it did on Saturday. So it was slightly better, but still not where we want it to be. And I think that's the most frustrating part of where everything stands right now in the final game, heading towards a World Cup roster.
Yeah, I want to zoom back and not just take this game, but take the whole camp, the whole two games. And I think it was a reminder of the gap of talent and how do we need to adjust expectation with this group and with this team when we're heading into a World Cup, right? I was part of the whole Berhalter process, so that was kind of different because we didn't go to Russia, and it was like a rebuild, right? And in 2019, 2020, you started hearing the rumblings, and seeing on the field these young kids that now are in their prime, like Pulisic, McKennie, Adams, etc. By the way, Tyler Adams was greatly missed these 2 games.
Yeah.
And when they started getting labeled as the golden generation, and I remember an interview that I did with Tony Meola in 2019, trying to look up to 2026, right, and see where this group projected. All of them projected themselves as a group, as a team, as a generation. And he said something that I go back at it, especially in the past few months, and especially after the failure at Copa America that originated all this change with Berhalter to Pochettino. And he said, if we get to 2026 with Christian Pulisic not being our best player, then we are in a good position. And that's not the case today. So I think this is a reminder, and it's a link to what we're talking about earlier with Italy. There's no talent. There's no world-class talent. Italy today is not better than Bosnia, than Ireland, than Norway, than Russia, than Ukraine, than Czechia, than Turkey, etc. The US is not as good as Portugal, as Belgium, as the big teams in the world. And I think we need to adjust our expectations, because if the expectations are a semifinal, winning the World Cup, I think they're wrong. So for me, when I see these 2 games, what I saw, it's something that I was expecting, right? So I know it's maybe harsh to say that way, but the time is over. The World Cup is here, and the next time that Mauricio Pochettino announces a roster, these guys are going to be the 26 that are going to play at the World Cup.
Yeah.
So I think we need to adjust expectations and realize that this team is not where we thought they could be at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's part of like some of the fumbles in the process and going back between coaches, and then Pochettino not having as much time and whatnot. But then it felt like last fall we got this pop of like, even if maybe talent-wise is not always there, right? What do we go back to when we think of U.S. men's national team succeeding at high levels? It's effort and grit and like fight and all that stuff. And Brianna, it felt like it had come, and then as you talked about in this game, it's gone again. And it's really hard to put your finger on what's going on externally from inside the group of a lack of consistency of that true like effort.
Well, it seems like a lot of new players have come into the fold and have been getting opportunities to make a name for themselves, because to your point, Michele, we talked about how wanting to see like the next big thing, who was going to be the difference maker on the field. And in that search for the player that was going to be the difference maker, it left a lot of question marks on what chemistry looks like with this group. And to your point, falling back on the grit, the tenacity, the effort that are American values, that I feel like was overlooked in the process of trying all these different things and trying to establish like a new identity post the Berhalter era.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where if Michele's right, then like that's going to be the difference maker in some of these matchups. Now, someone in the YouTube chat says, well, they had it against Paraguay last fall. So like, Michele, it's not a thing that doesn't exist in this group. It just seems to be something where there's
but Paraguay is not Belgium. Paraguay is not Portugal. Paraguay is not France, Germany, Spain. Like what are we talking about? We're trying to make Paraguay what? And so to your point, Brianna, and also to your point, David, obviously you can win a game. The USMNT can win 90 minutes against Spain on a good day, right? And I go back to Mauricio Pochettino presser yesterday. He repeated the word intensity 100 times.
That was such a long answer.
So how do you compensate the lack of talent when you're facing much better teams with that grit, like you said, Brianna, with intensity? And we clearly didn't see that against Belgium, because it was Mauricio Pochettino saying that on the presser over and over again. We saw a little bit of that at the beginning of this game, because the USMNT started the game with a couple of good chances. The final third was a problem. It was a complete shock to everyone that he played with a false nine today, having 3 good number 9s on the roster and on the bench. But at the end, you can have the intensity, the grit, but at the end, talent trumps everything. And on the games when you don't have the talent and you don't have the intensity, the grit, and the disposition in the final third, these are the results that you get, and these are the performances that you get. So it was, honestly, this window was again, my expectations weren't as high as maybe yours, Brianna, or David, or the fans, etc., because I'm not maybe emotionally tied to this team as all of you are. But I was more disappointed than I thought.
Yeah.
if I can say it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I said coming into it last week, like I had felt there had been a culture set at the end of last year where I was not nervous about these conversations we have. Who's the starting center back pairing? Who is the center forward? Because it felt like what we had seen was a large pool of player that understood what that speed of play was and what they were going to do. And that no matter who the characters were, there was a pretty good chance that at least the team was moving in the right direction. And I feel that way. I don't feel that way as much. Roberto Martinez yesterday was like, you can't take anything from March friendlies. And this is the Portugal coach talking, but he was sort of saying, like, in watching the US, I don't take anything from a March friendly. Like, it's a friendly, you can't dig too far into it. It's really hard to come out of, 7-2 aggregate across 2 games and 2 losses at home and not take anything from it. But I do want us to dig into that opening 20 minutes because it was the brightest part of the 2 games. And I think there was a sign of why Pochettino went with a false 9. There was a lot of rotation. Pulisic goes out to press. McKinney goes up high. Weah comes alongside him. Now Pulisic's making runs over the top with runners underneath him. There was a lot of that, but you also see the lack of having that 9, which is you didn't have one player to play into, and you didn't have that one outlet. And I think as the half wore along, you start to saw those restrictions. Brianna, you laughed. You've lived the false 9 life a little bit.
Well, it's interesting because it feels like coaches are trying to like reinvent the wheel. A lot of players are inverting now, whether that's from an outside back position or like an inverted 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can be done very well. But I think that leaves a lot of questions over who's responsible for what and which spaces that they're occupying.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to get a team to build effectively, they've got to know like whose ground is what and kind of have a good read on the movement off the ball and the timing in order to like break down an opposition. And like in the first 20 minutes, it seemed like things were going to go in a positive direction, but it sort of broke down like as we made changes and personnel like came into the fold, because when you bring on new players who are strictly like a number 9, you're not going to have that fluidity that they aim to show at the start of this game.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you, because Carl Martino said something interesting in the broadcast. I think he mentioned it twice when he was talking about the surprise of not starting with a number 9, starting with a false 9, and then he said it again on I think the last 20 minutes or something, and talking about what Pochettino was trying to do, or maybe trying to guess what he wanted to do on this window, because it's kind of late, right, to start doing all these experiments.
Yeah.
So I remember Carl Martino said something of like this. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact word, but he said, "I think that Pochettino already knows what he wants to do, and what are his 26 and what is his starting lineup for the World Cup." So basically, the experiments against Belgium and especially against today were just as like, it's not panicking. He already knows what he's gonna do, but still he wanted to try some stuff. I don't know how you guys see it.
So he said that the second time he said that, for sure. He said that in the context of, he was asked like, how do you think Pochettino is gonna watch club form now to decide? And Kyle Martino was like, I think he already knows, which I kind of agree with. I think maybe there's 1 or 2 decisions to be made, or Obviously, if an injury occurs, then you have to be watching. Or maybe if Patrick Agyemang scores 14 goals in his next 5 games, then like it's something you can't ignore and you have to figure out how to deal with. I think that part's kind of true. If that is the case, and he said, so let's try something different and let's see what we have in this. And you do that in a sold-out stadium in a home game, in the last game going up to the final roster, it feels like a miss of an understanding of what the job is overall.
And he would be underestimating the power of home field advantage, because it's like, we're going to be playing on our own turf. So you want the crowd to be behind you in a, hopefully round of 16 game, if that's what success looks like for the US. Actually, I would like to pose that question to you all. What is success for the World Cup for the US for you? In your opinion?
At this point, I would say a strong quarterfinal appearance. I would have told you semifinal 10 years ago, maybe not 6 years ago, coming out of failing to qualify. And then over the last 4 years, I would have tried to say semifinal, except for when Tim Weah punched someone and then they got knocked out of Copa America and all of that. Michele?
I agree. I'll say right now, if we make the quarterfinals, it will be a good tournament. Again, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or even when Pochettino was named, mentioning semifinal, he mentioned semifinal in the last interview he did, I think. And again, I don't want to be so negative, because we saw what Morocco did in Qatar, right?
Yeah.
Get into a semifinal.
But to your point on the talent thing, Hakimi's the best right back in the world. Like
and I was gonna finish my idea of like, I don't see this. I don't think this team is as talented as Morocco.
Yeah.
So,
but they are a home team. Yeah.
Yeah, and I strongly agree with Brianna saying, like, taking these 2 games for granted. I don't think he did, but that's the taste that we're getting right now. And what he did today with this massive experiment, before naming your 26th to a World Cup, that tells me, and I agree with Martino and with you, David, that I think he already knows. Of course, again, like you said, a injury or maybe a striker that goes nuts in these last 2 months could change his mind. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But definitely, it was disappointing in the sense of it was a really good opportunity to send the team off to a World Cup in a good way. Now everyone is deflated.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel the same way that I do, that this team honestly is really far away from what we thought this group could be, especially with all the hype that, because this is not from yesterday or last week or last month. We've been talking 2026 since 2018 when this was announced, right? And then we started labeling this kid as these kids as the golden generation, and we hype everyone that comes through that pipeline. So it's truly disappointing. Hopefully I'm wrong. They have a great World Cup, but obviously the vibes are not great right now.
Yeah. Brianna, did you have an answer?
Just like, well, yes, round of 16, I think is success. And I want to be like optimistic, like heading after that. So yeah. I'm going to set the bar low and then be excited about it. Because I'm always rooting for the US. But to the point about confidence, like obviously I don't know anything about coaching. I've never been a coach, but as a player, you want to play every player to their strengths and let them do what brings out the best in them on the field. And this experiment didn't seem like they did that. Yeah. And like, if you want to have a team ticking in the way that they need to be at the level and the intensity that they talked about ahead of a World Cup, like confidence is everything, because you have to be, like, as an attacker, you have to be willing to go at people 1v1 on the dribble and create opportunities to score. And I didn't feel like we saw that out of Pulisic, who we've relied on for so long to be a spearhead of this group.
And even if like, okay, because they played well in segments of this, maybe it's not an experiment, maybe he does use it. Patrick Agyemang and Ricardo Pepi, they've not been here before. So let's say you end up in a situation where you need them. Mm-hmm. Having played 60 minutes against Portugal or having success against Portugal could be the difference in their experience between being confident in a World Cup round of 16 match, or being forced into the starting lineup, or maybe you decide that the matchup's better, right? Maybe you look at things and you say, against Australia, we're going to start Ajamong because it's going to be physical and the center backs are tall, and we want someone who can deal with that. And maybe we don't want to have Balogun sort of like worn down by that experience in the middle of the group stage. And this is an experience that you kind of didn't get for those players, which is where I thought the rotations in this game. Now, I would say you did with Aidan Morris and Sebastian Berhalter. I think they got a chance to play against one of the best midfields on the planet. Michele was texting about Vitinha and how perfect every touch is and how beautiful everything he does is. He is like watching a little fairy float around on the field. He's incredible. And I think Aidan Morris and Berhalter can look at themselves and say, we stood up against this and we belong on the same field as them. And I think that's a huge step for them. I think Chris Richards had another really good night. We're not 100% sure who his partner is, but at least we've got one of the pieces locked in, which maybe wasn't the case in the past. And I think there are other pieces you could say had good games coming out of this. But it's nice to have as many of those as possible heading towards a World Cup. And I'm not sure that that's the case coming out of these two games.
And I think you mentioned a word that is key. It's confidence, right? And we are clearly not seeing the best, not even close, of the best version of Christian Pulisic. And you see it on the field. He's not confident. He doesn't, it seems that he doesn't trust himself at some moments of the game. And it's not new with the USMNT. We've seen it the whole year with Milan. Something clearly is happening there. And at the end, you mentioned Berhalter and Aidan Morris and Christian Roldan or Johnny Cardoso, the first, especially the first half against Portugal. But at the end, this team is gonna live or die with what your best players do, and those are Anthony Robinson, Christian Pulisic, and Weston McKennie. This team cannot allow himself or this team cannot survive if they don't have an A game against this type of competition, right? So after these two games, I don't believe the confidence is super high, and I think that's a big problem, because it's also part of the intensity discourse from Pochettino, the grit, what he wants to see on the field. If I would have to bet, if I'm Pochettino right now, right now, I'm more concerned with that than with the soccer itself, and that's a huge problem when the next camp it's the World Cup already.
Yeah, and I think you could say the two goals, one comes out of a mistake, then a few players are out of position against the ball and rest defense that you didn't think would happen because you're still in your build out, and it's great. Bruno Fernandes is a great player. It's a back heel that Kyle Martino's like, what else is he going to do? It's like, yeah, but no one else executes that. There's like 7 people on the planet that execute that. And the finish is good. And then the João Felix goal. I mean, Brianna, you texted me like crazy. He had the time, but he also hits it pretty perfect.
He hit it perfectly. But for the ball to bounce inside your 18-yard box on a set piece is unacceptable. The first player that's closest to the ball has to get something on it to either block it or to make sure he doesn't even get the shot to begin with.
Yeah.
Because you could see that they were set up. So one of the things that we talk about as players is being suspicious, having your head on a swivel, seeing where the areas of danger are. And if you have him at the top of the box, like, he's a player to be wary of.
And those are the intensity things about this game, where it's like, that feels like not everyone's turned on. Even in just setting up marking, I think everyone on the U.S. was in a line across the 6. And there was 4 Portugal players on the top box, which means I get it's zonal, but multiple U.S. players are in the same zone then.
You have to think on the fly, and you have to be able to adapt, because even though you were told like the assignment is the zone, these players are intelligent enough to identify where open space is to get a quality attempt on goal, and they did just that.
And so those are the 2 goals, and I don't think anyone walks away saying like, oh wow, João Felix scored and that's a total failure. I think for the U.S., the chances to be created, and you mentioned it, Brianna, of like that half bit of clean touch or preparedness, that first chance for Pulisic, like, it's slow and then he chooses to hit it with his right because it's more comfortable. the window is with his left. Like there was no space coming off that left side for him to hit the shot with his right foot and get it on goal. And it's like, are you locked in and ready and prepared for a chance to fall to you 2 minutes into the game? It didn't feel that way for him. Although I thought Trusty did really well to step forward and build that play. I thought him and Freeman had some really nice moments overall in this game. Okay. Big thoughts. Anything that we haven't hit yet before we get into some of the wild games over the course of the day? Michele, you can go first so we can avoid talking about Italy as long as possible.
Well, I think this issue is going to get resolved a little bit. Hopefully, knock on wood, when Tyler comes back, when Tyler Adams comes back, and hopefully again, knock on wood, he's healthy for the World Cup. Because against Portugal and against Belgium on the first goal, I think the US suffers a lot when it's time to defense in transitional defense. Like, I mean, it's not looking good, and there are highways. Especially against Portugal, you saw it on the midfield, right? And Pochettino said it, like on at least on 2 or 3 goals, the midfield didn't do a good job covering on one side for Jedi, on the other side from where I think that's gonna get better, obviously, when Tyler Adams gets healthy. And I don't know, man. I don't know. And I've been trying to get thoughts on this, but I don't know how Yunus Musa just became completely invincible for Pochettino.
Well,
I think
he's invisible at Milan and Atalanta, so it makes it a little bit harder.
He's been playing at Atalanta.
A little more.
The last few weeks. And I think Yunus Musa on one leg, it's a better option that a lot of things that we have right now, without feeling disrespectful. That's my belief, especially in that area of the field where we are lacking physicality, intensity, and especially when you get the ball, knowing what to do with it. And this is an issue that I heard you were talking with Doyle after Portugal. Johnny Cardoso doesn't give you that. If Johnny Cardoso have to turn with the ball, most likely you're in trouble, or he's gonna be in trouble. Yunus Musa and I think it's the best ball progressors in the, if not the best in the whole group. But clearly Pochettino doesn't see anything on him. And I think that's a big miss on his part. So hopefully when Tyler comes back and he's healthy, this is going to get better. But the midfield is a big worry for me right now.
Before you go, I just want everyone to know I'm watching Canada in the background, and every Jesse Marsh game is like every player's hair is on fire. So if you thought the transition defense was bad, it could be technically worse, although maybe on purpose, if Jesse Marsh coached this team. Brianna?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that in the midfield. I think McKennie's at his best when Adams is on the field, because Adams, that stay-at-home 6, who's going to be box-to-box, covering ground, winning balls, and then distributing and starting to build. So I feel like that was definitely missing at times today. But it is sad to see a player like Musa fly under the radar, because I think he just does such a good job with his positional awareness. Like when there are gaps on the field, he fills it. And then in the build, the way he positions his body so that he can play forward, or has his head on a swivel so he can play around the man and then moves again to get it. Because progression is not just making the pass, it's advancing with it to get the team forward so that they can build in numbers in the attacking third. And it felt a little bit disjointed, but again, like at a World Cup, you need players who are going to play all 90 minutes. They can't just be on one side of the ball. And he's someone, or Adams, or someone that is going to fight tooth and nail to make that last-ditch defensive effort to clear the ball out of the box. And it just seems like we are missing that. But hopefully, Pochettino can find a way to plug those holes ahead of the World Cup, because at this point, we're at the moment that it's going to count.
Still a lot of work to do. As we've heard, he will not be calling in extra players to that camp going into the World Cup. So we're going to get the 26 when we get the announcement, if everyone is healthy. There are still some question marks at the bottom of that. Reina got, about 40 minutes all in across the 2 games. We don't expect him to play a ton with his club team, so we will see what that means to Pochettino and what he wants to do. Some question marks on the back end of what the options will be at center back, at center forward, and then sort of who will be the mix in that central midfield. I have to think Berhalter did himself a couple of favors. I think he's safely on that roster now. And now it's, can he push for more playing time? Especially getting the opportunity coming out of being the sub to start in that second game and get a ton of minutes over there. I cannot even explain to you what is going on in this Canada game. It is so unhinged. It was a 3-on-0 break for Tunisia. I don't know how that happened. And someone recovered and was able to block the shot for Canada. And then they all got up screaming and everyone's pushing each other. It is like Red Bull to the core at this thing. Let's jump in, though, to our to the best things we saw around the world as we got through our qualifying. I wrote down, we'll do this like when you have a kid. You eat your vegetables first, then you get dessert. So dessert is going to be the good stuff, which means, Michele, we could start with Italy. You kind of already put some of it out there, the frustration with the talent level. Now, I don't know that the Italy-US comp is perfect, mainly because they're coming from two different spheres. But to your point about where they sit right now, this is the third straight World Cup they failed to qualify for. They took a 1-0 lead. Bastoni gets the red card early for kind of a moment of madness on the tackle. And at that point, they kind of did everything you'd hope for, and it just wasn't enough across, 100 minutes playing down a man, 89 minutes, whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we're gonna just see today's game and blame Bastoni or blame Moise Kean that he had the one-on-one against the keeper when the game was 1-0 to put it away 2-0, and blame it on them, or blame the two players that missed the PKs, or blame it on the referee for not taking a red card, same play as Bastoni, but the Bosnian defender got a yellow card, etc. It's been three World Cups in a row, and this is a systematic problem that, compared to the US, and credit to the US, when it happened for Russia 2018, changes were made. In Italy, changes weren't made. The same federation, the same people that were in charge of destroying the Italian soccer pipeline and the way the teams work with youngsters and the academies and everything around, and you see it. Serie A was the best league in the world during the 80s, during the 90s, during the early 2000s, and now it's the third, fourth best league if in the world. It's sad to see that the same mistakes are being made and nothing happens. I think that's the biggest frustration, that you see it and everybody knows what the solutions are, but the same people are still in charge, the same people that were in charge 12 years ago when it first happened. I'm happy that I was a functional adult when Italy was. I saw my nation and my team win a World Cup in 2006. I was 22 years old. There are kids in college right now, or getting into college, that haven't seen Italy in the World Cup.
I think our producer Douglas put together something. The driver for Formula for Ferrari,
Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah,
Kimi Antonelli. He
hasn't been
seen
alive with Italy playing a knockout game, let alone winning. They haven't played a knockout game since they won the 2006 World Cup final.
The last game that Italy played at World Cup was when Luis Suarez beat Chiellini.
That's wild.
That's insane.
That's a
so
lifetime ago.
Yeah.
But again, when
Brianna, we're not even going to get into the fact that you probably don't have a conscience.
No, I do.
Of a
I
good
do
Italy.
remember that. I do remember that. That was probably the first World Cup that I can remember.
Yeah, but see, it's not the 3 World Cups that Italy has missed. If we go back, it was after the generation that won the 2006 World Cup. Then those 14, players start to retire. 2010, out of the group stage. 2014, out of the group stage, and then the next 3 you didn't qualify.
Yeah.
So it's actually 5 World Cups in a row that Italy has been a mess and not even qualifying. So again, these are I could be here all night, but at the end, I think it's developing talent. In Italy, teams don't trust the youngsters. And I was talking with I think I saw it. I put it in the group chat that one of the group chats, like I'll give an example, Brianna. There's a superb talent called Francesco Camarda. He's 17 years old, and he's already scoring goals for the U21 at 17. He started last year with 16. He plays at Milan. What does Milan do? They loan him to Lecce to sign Santiago Jimenez, the Mexican striker, instead of giving the youngster who's already scoring for the U21, for the national team, the U21, and he's considered the biggest talent that has emerged in Italy in the last decade, right? So there's an issue with the clubs developing youngsters, and when they strike gold, they haven't been able to manage it, right? Today, the best player on the field was I'm blanking the name, the right back that came in the second half. He's 21 years old, Palestra. He's, again, one of the best young players in Italy. Everybody was begging the coach to put him in starting, but no. He has to start on the bench because the mediocre 32-year-old that plays at his position has to play above him.
Is that a cultural issue, though? That's maybe that could be an issue, like a cultural issue where you have to respect.
It's not a cultural issue.
And...
It's a federation issue. It's a people in charge issue, because when Italy, Pirlo, Gattuso, that generation that won the 2006 World Cup, they won a European U21. So there was a structure that was developing talent and giving that talent the opportunities at clubs, at teams. Now it got lost somewhere, and the people making decisions are it's sad. It's sad because I don't know. I only care about one soccer team, and it's the Italian national team. It's everything for me. And again, I was lucky to see them winning a World Cup and then winning a Euro in 2020. But it's frustrating that that a World Cup that now is being played in a backyard, and I could have seen my national team live. I don't get the opportunity. So again, I went too long here already.
One of the things that's mind-blowing, you said, okay, Italy's not better than Bosnia and Wales and named other teams, which you could argue about on each one. They're not worse, though. And you'd think you'd accidentally back into results over the course of, if we take all 20 years. And then the part that is so wild is that they won a European championship in the middle of all of this. Yeah. I have no idea what you're supposed to do with that. Like, in the context of all of this, it felt like they played some young players, right? They pushed Barella through, and at the time, Chiesa and whatever, and they won a thing, and then it all fell apart again.
There's also an issue with the league and the way the Italian teams play, and those players like Barella, like Chiesa, like, I don't know, like Calafiori, like Bastoni, etc. Most of them play in the Italian soccer league. And the league by itself, and the way the teams play, and the way that teams are developing players, the league, it's a very slow league. And you see it now when the Italian teams go to play European competitions, they get annihilated. Physicality, the pace of the game. Now the Italian teams have been how do you say it? Like they have lost grounds on that sense, right? And that has translated to the national team. And now you see, for example, who's the best defender in Italy right now? Scalafiori. He plays in Arsenal. Yeah. He's used to the intensity, to that next level, right? The rest of the team plays in the Italian league, and then the league has started to fall down at the level of play intensity, physicality, etc. And then when you go compete, and like you went on to compete in like hostile environments like today, and then top of that, you don't have the mental strength to manage the pressure because you are freaking Italy. And you saw it on their faces. Every guy, except Tonali, that plays in the Premier League, when they were to take the PKs, you could see it in their faces. They were going to miss. They were scared. And then you see the Bosnian players just like, yeah, we got this. We got this. And then you have that mental blockade, that you have that history on your back, and you didn't make it again. So today you were fighting Bosnia, you were fighting the hostility, you were fighting playing away, you were fighting the lack of talent, you were fighting against those ghosts of what Italy was, right? A four-time world champion, and now those players are also dealing with that, and it's just a perfect storm, and hopefully something changed. I'm not expecting anything to change, and that's all I can say.
Do you think
Just
we'll see
sad.
more of an influx of of Italian players going to the Premier League?
Hopefully, because well, the first thing that I want to see is changes internally, right?
Yeah.
I want to see the Italian league being the best league in the world again. I want to see the teams working the academies. And at one point, we had Roberto Baggio, Francesco Totti, and Alessandro Del Piero in the same 11. Our back line was Fabio Cannavaro, Alessandro Nesta, and Paolo Maldini. Where's that talent development now? It's we have one world class player, and it's the guy on goal, which is Donnarumma, that you can say he's the best goalkeeper in the world. The rest, we have zero world class player. That's something that it's unforgivable and embarrassing for a country like Italy. And at the end, it's talent.
All right. Well, now that we got that out, we can go
Sorry.
into some of the fun stuff and some of the good stuff. I will say this: one of the most ridiculous parts of this week, as I tried to process it, was the draw occurred for this UEFA playoffs, and somehow the scenario was the team that won in one of the single eliminations would host no matter what. So you had all these teams go away in the first game, win, and then they host the second game. Like Bosnia-Herzegovina was not considered good enough to host the first game against Wales, but then no matter what, if they won, they'd host the second game. We saw that with Kosovo. I don't even understand how that happens. I've literally never seen this before in my life, where it's like, oh yeah, no matter what, the team that wins on this side, then why would they not have been drawn against one of the worst teams? But that is for another day, on another topic. Let's do the best things we've seen over the last week in the world of soccer. I will give Michele a little breathing space here, so we'll go to some other topics first. Brianna, let's start with you.
It would definitely have to be the Denver Summit game. Seeing over 63,000 people at an NWSL game is super special. My first NWSL game was actually in 2013. I went to a Portland Thorns game when I was at a youth national team camp, and I don't think I knew that like women's professional soccer was relevant. So to see the first the NWSL come together and people really get behind it and support it, and then see an organization like Portland at the time was so special. So now, all these years later, breaking records in massive stadiums, it was just really empowering to see how far this league has come. And see so many different soccer fans across the country just support it in a way that it deserves. So it gave me hope for where we're headed. And my greatest hope is that this summer we can continue to capitalize on like the World Cup coming and just the growth of the game. And hopefully that will parlay into the women's game as well, and continued attendance.
I love having you on this show as one of our co-hosts, but I'm going to do the player thing now and ask you, like, what was the vibe across the league for players who weren't at this game, like talking about this and experiencing it from afar?
Well, it's more like a sense of pride. So I'm actually a part of the NWSLPA, and we talked about field standards. Like when my first year in the league, we were establishing a CBA, and at the time we were playing on minor league baseball fields. So for them to be playing in Colorado at the Broncos Stadium was just so cool. And it makes us want to do the same things at our own clubs and push our own ownership groups to help us make this marketable. But again, we have to continue making the product on the field exciting. I think the only drawback was I wish there were goals in this game, because 63,000 people seeing a 0-0 tie is never exciting. But I think there was just immense pride just for the players that got to experience that, for the players that were honored. I actually heard that Kristen Hamilton, she was honored as one of the players from Denver. And obviously she had such a great career in the NWSL. So just to see the way they gave an ode to the past, but also are celebrating the future was a really beautiful thing. So, yeah.
I walked past a group of Kansas City Current fans in the tailgate outside the stadium. And I wasn't like shocked. 63,000, it's coming, like people travel. And as I was walking, I looked back and I realized they all said Hamilton. And it was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense than the KC Current fan section at the Washington Spirit Denver opening game. But yeah, I think Jordan said it was 32 different players from Colorado history who had never gotten a chance to play professionally in front of their home fans that got a chance to be at the game for this. So setting the attendance record, Jordan went through, we recorded our Soccerwise episode earlier, all the records they set, because it's basically the highest attendance for any league game in women's soccer history. There are Champions League finals and World Cup finals. The Asian Cup final in Sydney was, I think, 80,000 last week when Japan upset them. But to have like a regular season game for any team anywhere on the planet, it's the largest crowd in history. And this is the third straight year that the record's been set. So feels like there's a clear runway for the next record to be set at some point soon. So it is an awesome one. Michele, you wanted to follow up, I think, with some NWSL too.
I'm going to stick with the NWSL. I'm sorry, Brianna. I'm going to take my San Diego Wave signing Catarina Macario. Great news, incredible news, amazing news. 3 wins in the first 4 games. For people that don't know, I used to live in San Diego. I was there when the Wave were founded. I was a season ticket holder for the first 2 years, and I moved away. I missed it a lot. I'm so happy that we're back after a terrible couple of years. But yeah, it's incredible that the team now made such a massive signing. Is she the largest paid player in women's soccer?
I think it's debatable, but she's definitely up there. I mean,
her and Trinity are one, two, for sure.
Are definitely up
so
there.
And
Bon
it's not
is up there too.
And it's not that it's my team. Obviously, I'm happy because it's my team, but I'm really happy that that type of investment, if it's being done by an American team and instead of a European team, right? Because that in the last couple of years, it's been the Europeans poaching the NWSL, right? And they took my goat, David, Brianna. They took my goat, Naomi.
Yeah,
Naomi, I have nothing but positive things to say about
Deep,
Naomi.
Brianna. Can I tell you my hot take? Can I tell you my hot take?
Go for it.
Nice.
I think she's such a generational talent. So I truly believe she's already the best American defender of all time.
Well, without a doubt.
And
whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Without a doubt.
This is a conversation
the best
between me and
American
Brianna, David,
defender
please.
of all time.
Yes, and I believe
the others that would go up was like Christy Rampone
and Becky,
like Captain America, and Becky.
Yeah.
But
and for me, because defenders are people too, I think she's the best player in the world. I don't care.
I don't disagree.
She's unbelievable, and watching her in San Diego was just incredible.
I think in the MVP argument, you could argue she affects the game as much as anyone, because when she's in your team, you can press in certain ways, you can push numbers in certain ways that no one else can do. We saw it with San Diego. We've seen it with the US as well. Mm-hmm. Even when the US has had success without her, you feel the difference of the way players can take risks and the way she's able to erase over the top. Although I will say, Kenny Wesley having a great year.
Kennedy is having a great year.
Stanford alums just continue
killing the game right now.
Yeah. Houston's had a pretty good year off some UNC players as well. So you guys don't stop producing players at any point. Okay, I'm going to go with mine, which is about youth development in the U.S., but on the men's side. And it's Esmir Baraktarevic, who, not because Michele's here, he was the best player on the field in a World Cup qualifier against Italy to clinch a spot for Bosnia and Herzegovina to go to the World Cup. For anyone who doesn't know, his family immigrated because of the civil wars, and came to the US, and he was raised in Wisconsin. And he was raised in a Bosnian family, raised in Wisconsin, played in the US youth systems we've all grown up and played in, spent a little time with the Chicago Fire, and then a lot of time with the New England Revolution. And he was part of a reset for the Revolution Academy, which now we've seen not just him, right? We saw Noel Buck go to Southampton for a little while before he came back. We think Peyton Miller is headed as well. And he was sort of the face of this, but he is, a kid who grew up here loving his home country. Edin Dzeko, his favorite player on the planet, he got a chance to walk on the field and score the winning penalty kick to get Edin Dzeko to a last World Cup at 40 years old. From an emotional point of view, it is one of the best stories on the planet. And this is also part of the success of the development that has shifted in the U.S. We see it on the women's side, right? The Philippines just qualified for the World Cup. South Korea, all these countries are pulling players from the U.S. because development has gotten better. And now it's happening on the men's side as well. And the best player and the most talented up-and-coming player on now one of the best nations in Europe came purely out of the American youth system. And not all of that is like it's the youth system that created him. But the fact that the pipeline exists for talented players to be able to be found, to be able to push their limits and get to the next stage, which may not have existed 10, 20 years ago. I mean, you could think about how many players in Wisconsin that were talented that just didn't get the opportunity or didn't get seen in the past. And now a Bosnian kid can have the dream that he'll play in a World Cup for his country, and he can actually get there through the pipeline that's built. It was a pretty special moment, and it was a cool part of the day of like, I covered this kid's U17 games, and now he's scoring the winning penalty to go to a World Cup in UEFA World Cup qualifying. Aiden Morris and Sebastian Berhalter, I covered them playing together in a U15 game, and now they're playing together to start for the U.S. men's national team. So I think development's come a long way. An incredible story for him, and it was a really cool way to end the day for everyone who's not Italian. For everyone whose name doesn't end in a vowel.
I would like to add something real quick to that. With all these kids that are dual nationals or had multiple options to pick their team, and how important it is to let them do that. I because of all the stupidity that I've listened in the last weeks about Noah Kai Banks, right? Mm-hmm. Especially from supposedly our best player of all time, or the best American player of all time. Anyways, how important is to let them be? Yeah, it sucks that he picked Bosnia over the US, right? As a US fan, but it's so happy. I'm so happy that he followed his heart. He followed what he felt. He felt more Bosnian than American, and now look at him. And I think we should never ever put the type of pressure that some people are trying to put on Banks to kids like him. Yeah,
or you could love them both equally, and you have to choose one, and that's okay as well.
I mean, it's part of your heritage. You can't just deny one part.
Yeah. But I will say, tagline for anyone who hasn't listened to us before: Soccerwise, Kickback Committee. We are the show that doesn't shame people for being dual nationals and having multiple national teams that they can play for. So that will be our tagline.
What a gift that is.
Yeah. That can be the tagline of our show versus other shows that are out there.
Musa had like 5 options.
Yeah. Okay, let's run through a couple of these. So we talked about Bosnia with the victory. Denmark missed 3 penalty kicks after coming from behind twice across 120 minutes in their World Cup qualifier at Czech Republic. They got scored on in the 4th minute. They had 77% possession on the road in Prague. They ended up scoring extra time. Czechia scores again off a set piece, and then Denmark equalizes and then goes to the shootout. In 4 shots, Christian Eriksen was the only one to score, and all 3 other players missed. I think Andres Dreier's shot was saved, and the other 2 missed the entire frame. So Italy, not the only country with heartbreak today, as Denmark not headed to the World Cup. Then we had Kosovo losing to Turkey 1-0. Turkey scoring late in the second half. So now Turkey will be the 3rd opponent for the U.S. men's national team in the group. That game will be in L.A. to close out World Cup qualifying. Bosnia and Herzegovina, by the way, they will play the opener against Canada in Toronto, which, if it had been Italy, was going to be a scene on its own as one of the biggest Italian communities on the planet outside of Italy. And now it'll be Bosnia and Herzegovina, which I assume will also be a vibe. Maybe all of Esmir Baraktarevich's family, friends, and entire town of Wisconsin will drive up through the border and go to this game. And then the last qualifier was Sweden knocking off Poland. This game went 1-0, 1-1, 2-2, and then finally 3-2 with Gorka scoring the winner for Sweden. This was a Sweden team that won one game across World Cup qualifying, but because of the Nations League, they automatically grabbed a spot in this playoffs. They beat Ukraine in Spain because Ukraine could not host in the first game. And then again, makes no sense to me. Then after being on the road, they go home and they host Poland in this game and they win 3-2. And then the only other result we have right now is DR Congo scoring in extra time against Jamaica down in Guadalajara to make it through to the World Cup. So the Reggae Boys are out, and we are still waiting on the result from the Iraq Bolivia game, which will be the final spot to put into the World Cup. So a lot of results there, a lot of drama over the course of the day. Besides Esmir Baraktarevic, anything stand out to you guys?
I'm very excited about Turkey USA because, like, obviously seeing Turkey, I wanted to see like a good matchup because I have tickets to that World Cup game.
Nice.
So I think that'll be a good team to face. I mean, they've got a lot of talent, and it'll be a good way for the US to see where they stand.
I think the group got severely more difficult now for the USMNT because Turkey, it's legit and they have a lot of talent, a lot of young talent. Yildiz, Arda Güler, just two up top.
I think Güler got in a fight coming off the field, like not in a bad way, like he was fiery in this game.
And sad for Jamaica, my guy Ian Frey, he come on to the game. He played, I think he came up like 87 minutes or something. I was talking to him before the break. I did the New York City Miami game here in New York, and I had a chance to speak to him. He was excited and hopeful to join the team and qualify for the World Cup. I'm bummed for him and for Jamaica, but yeah, I think the USMNT group it's gonna be more difficult than people realize. Paraguay's a good team. Turkey's a really good team, and I don't know what to make of Australia, but I mean it's kind of a walker, right?
Yeah. For Jamaica, obviously heartbreak for them, for DR Congo. First time they've qualified for the World Cup since they've been named DR Congo. First time as a country, really, since they were Zaire in 1974. So a huge moment for them. They were the dominant team for this entire game. The crowds have been awesome in Mexico. If you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'd love to hear more about the Iraq game, we have someone at the game, Valer Shabila, who has done a lot of stuff with us. He's Iraqi American. He is going to see them play in person for the first time in his life. By the time he left Baghdad, they were not really playing games. They have not played anywhere close to the U.S. since then. So he is down in Monterrey. He texted me. He's going to send us some videos and footage. We're going to run it on First Touch tomorrow. But he texted me and said, Monterrey's amazing. The Mexico fans are amazing. If Iraq qualifies, I'm moving here. So we may not be getting it back after this, but either way, he's having a blast. He's been posting videos about like being an Iraq fan and going, and the comment section have been flooded by Mexicans with advice of where to go and what to do, and they can't wait to root for them. So I think it's going to be a pretty special game to close out the night, and that will be the final spot at the 2026 World Cup to be filled. So to help everyone, one of the things we've been working on is sort of a guide to how to pick a second team for the World Cup. Even if you are locked into one team, there are 48 of them now. There's going to be 4 games a day all through the group stage. And you're going to want someone else, I think, to root for in whatever way you want to. So we've been brainstorming with all of our co-hosts that we rotate through Kickback Committee, which, by the way, Susanna Fuller is not here because her husband is coaching in the US Open Cup, which I probably should have had that up. They were down to 9 men and into stoppage. They won in penalty kicks after getting 2 red cards against Asheville City. They finally got a win. So congratulations to Juan Knox and to Susanna and Ian on that side. But they've been going through sort of how to pick your second team. And I was curious if you guys have ways that you go about this. Do you have second teams already locked in? I'm kind of a bit of a cliche, and there's always a team I can find that fits into my sort of barriers. But Brianna, do you have a way that you go about being like, yeah, I'll root for them?
I think this World Cup is unique just because I got to meet people from different federations as a part of the United bid. So I'm rooting for North America.
Okay.
I think we're entering the most
You are
exciting
you are
era.
Captain Planet on this one.
we're entering the most exciting era of football in North America with the next couple years. So my hope is that it would become the number one sport on in this part of the world. So I'm rooting for US first, and then Canada and Mexico second.
Okay.
So if either of them were, or any of them were to win, it would be a win for me.
If they were to play each other, how would you go about that?
Well, my two buddies, Alfonso and Diego, I guess Alfonso will hopefully be playing in the World Cup, so I think it would be Canada first, then Mexico.
Okay. All right. I think that's a fair way to go about it. Michele, you've got like 500 teams now.
Oh, yeah, I have all 48 to pick. Obviously, I wish the best to USMNT, but I'm gonna root hard for Colombia. I have growing up. For people don't know geographically, Colombia and Venezuela have always historically been brothers and sisters. And I grew up. Part of my childhood was in Venezuela, and I grew up in a house where I had Colombian neighbors, and their kids were like my age, so we played soccer together, and that was the time of the best national soccer team that I've ever seen in my life, the Colombian 93, 94. If people please go and watch those highlights. For example, that team beat Argentina 5-0 in Argentina.
Yeah.
Before the World Cup 1994. And then you can watch the 30-for-30. The two
Escobars.
The two Escobars to explain what happened and why that team failed at the World Cup. But that was peak Valderrama, peak Tren Valencia, peak everything. That's the best national team I've ever seen play, and I've always had like a rooting interest in Colombia because of my childhood and my friendships. And hopefully they have the breakthrough tournament that they've deserved, because that's a nation that has so much talent and they're always like coming up. It's gonna be hard because I don't think that team is as good as the one that played in Copa America in 2024 that reached the final and lost to Argentina. But it's kind of the same group. Hopefully they get good results. But yeah.
Okay.
Colombia.
So I love that one.
And although they don't have the best arepas, because the best arepas are Venezuelan arepas, I highly recommend it for you guys to try Colombian arepas. And of course, with all due respect, Brianna, Colombian women, I love you all.
You don't have to all due respect just because you like a thing.
Yeah. Well, in front of a lady here, I'm just
got it.
I'm a gentleman. I'm a gentleman.
So here's the only thing I'll say: Colombian arepas are sweet corn, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Venezuelan.
What?
I mean, it can be. I mean, there's corn flour.
Yeah.
But there's a way to make them sweet.
Yeah.
No,
I find that most of the arepas I eat for Colombia, the difference is what one is stacked on top and the other one's made as a sandwich.
Yeah. And the sweet the sweet one, it's depends of it's where you eat it geographically. In Venezuela, it's like in the south. You find more like the sweet arepa, but the main difference is in Venezuela you open it and you stuff it. In Colombia, you put it on top.
Yeah.
Like a
tostada. Yeah. You're preaching the choir here. Now that I've lived in Miami, Venezuelan food has been established as my favorite food. We're eating tequeños like 5 times a week at this point, which is getting a little bit dangerous. So let's say you don't have a team locked in, Brianna. You're not already rooting for the two. You're rooting for Michele. You're not. Do you prefer an underdog? Do you prefer a favorite and a team you know has a chance to win? Is there a style that you look for? Like, how would you go about picking a team you'd root for?
It would definitely be an underdog or like a federation that's made like a historical amount of investment in their team. So like
Mhm.
Morocco is one that's come up on both the men's and the women's side. But yeah, like I like a compelling storyline where you've got some star players, but you've also got a young and upcoming group that's like got something to prove. So I think that would be like my marker of a way to decide which team to root for.
Okay, Michele, do you like to go with a favorite?
Um, you're telling me, do I prefer to watch the favorite?
I mean, some people like this is what I would say as I'm trying to help people pick their teams.
I don't.
Some people are like, I don't want to pick a team that's not going to be there in the semis, and I want to root for a team that like I know has opportunity to win.
I mean, I have a dark horse for the World Cup, which is Norway. I don't know how.
Okay,
dark
I thought you were going
horse
to say
it is.
Japan.
Japan is a good pick, but if you're asking me when it's quarterfinal, semifinal, the final, I want the big teams. Like
Okay.
I'm not. It's the same thing with March Madness.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
Duke. I want Kentucky. I want the big names. UConn on the final
You
four.
could say UNC. UNC is one of them.
You don't want to.
UNC.
You don't want to.
No, we want the
No,
the
that's
best
the
teams.
wrong answer.
The wrong answer. We don't want
Brianna
UNC?
is a
Okay.
UNC grad.
Oh, okay. So we want the I want the final to be
You want big
France,
names.
England. Yeah. And I mean, again, I'm rooting for Colombia, Norway, but at the end, I want the big ones. I want the big ones.
I'm with Brianna. I want the underdog story. I would, if we could see a Cape Verde, I don't know, Cape Verde Japan final, I would take it.
Where does Argentina and France, like the World Cup final, stack up for you all in all the finals that you've seen? Because I mean, that was one that I can remember clear as day.
I think it's the best of all time.
Yeah,
Really?
I think that might be the best final of all time. Yeah.
Yeah.
To have it be that open, to score that many goals, I think we'll probably look back and say Mbappe was before his pure prime and Messi was just after, but you still have two of the players of their generation facing off against each other, which is just so rare. Of, you know, having that opportunity to have like sort of the next guy go up against the last guy and Messi having to get over the top. So yeah, I would say that is the best final that I've ever seen from like a pure game, and it might be the most dramatic we've ever had.
Yeah, I was actually watching the highlights of the game. It came out on a reel or something. The Emiliano Martinez save, the one that at the end, it was at last minute of extra time.
Well, isn't France down 2-0 in like the 85th minute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something absurd. So I think it also the adding ingredient of Messi winning it and shutting down the GOAT conversation forever.
Yeah.
And then or having Mbappe winning back to back and become this extraterrestrial thing that at 24 years old has 2 World Cups or something, or even younger. I think Mbappe was like what, 21, 20. I don't know. He was so young.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the amount of goals, the excitement, I think for sure it's, in my opinion, the best.
Yeah, and this is from someone who roots for Italy and watched them win.
Well, because that actually does back your point about seeing the best teams play, because it's you want to see the best talent, you want to see the best players, and they put on a spectacle.
For me, sorry, if we're talking not final, the best game that I've ever watched on a World Cup, it's not actually the final, is the 2006 semifinal that Italy beats Germany. That game was with Luca Toni, and then that game, if you can find the highlights, it was just 2 teams that were, and it was the first time that you saw Italy that actually it's like, okay, we're not the defensive Italy right now. We're going to match your intensity and your offensive game. And actually, I remember Marcelo Lippi coming into extra time. He took a defender out and he put a striker in, and everybody was losing their minds. It's like, oh, we're going for it. And and obviously that's the last great team that Italy ever put on the field.
So let me give you the last few things we have in here that people have thrown in. And if you have any ideas of things you'd like to throw in to help us, what we're going to do is one of those charts where it's like, does this matter to you? If so, then you move towards this team. So Walker said underdog story, likability. Doyle said cuisine of the country. and style of play on the field. And then Suze's mother has said best looking manager. That those are the things that they've landed on. We've talked about music a little. We've talked about whether you've traveled to the place or not, or know people from there. Clearly, Michele, that's a connection for you. Is there any other category that you'd sort of throw out there to say this is something people should think through, and we can add it to our list?
Best airport.
Okay. Easiest to travel through?
Yes.
Salt Lake City.
All of the travel nerds are going to come out of the woodwork.
Charles de Gaulle would be like last on my list.
Okay. Good to know. That's an amazing one to have. I don't know. Well, I've been to some international airports where I've been impressed, so I shouldn't lie about that. Michele?
What?
Do you have another topic that you'd think through to use besides airports? Airports has been taken.
For what?
For Brianna. Brianna took airports. You have to say another one.
Of what? I got lost. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So what we're saying is ways to think about how you'd pick your team. So Doyle thinks through food. And he says, okay, do I like the cuisine of this country? Then I'd root for them. Do you have
I've always said I in life, besides Italy or whatever, I root for people. Okay. So I look for storylines. Okay. For example, I was rooting hard for Jamaica because Ian Fry.
Yeah.
No other reason.
Yeah.
Right. And I think those are like the things that I look for, like human stories and maybe players that have overcome massive odds against, and I don't know, or Bosnia. Bosnia just
you could do the transitive property. You could keep rooting for the teams that beat Italy.
Exactly. That means that
Italy,
that Italy got eliminated, but the next World Cup champion.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I don't want to keep you guys for too long, so thank you for being here. Thanks for hanging out, Michele. It's always a pleasure to have you. Brianna, you are in the midst of a season. Last time we talked to you, you had just moved to Chicago. It has been an up and down start to the season for you all on the field. What have you made of your experience so far before we get out of here? And have you checked things off your Chicago bucket list?
Yes, I did go to on the Chicago architecture tour.
Was it
wonderful.
Great?
It was wonderful.
Great.
And it was on such a beautiful day. My parents came to visit. It was actually the home opener weekend where we beat KC. So that was
the weather was nice on a day weekend?
I actually went the day before the game and it was beautiful. And then the following day it was like 19 degrees with wind chill and the ball was flying.
There was white caps coming out of that lake.
No, it was literally crazy. I remember driving to the game when we played against KC and I was like, man, Lakeshore is looking choppy. Things are not looking too hot for us because the wind, seriously, it's a real thing. That is like the third enemy. Like it's like you've got the weather, the opponent, and then the wind.
A third factor.
Yeah. But anyways, like we were really stoked to get the win. Obviously the other games haven't gone our way and we've let in a lot of goals, but we're learning from those mistakes. And then hopefully when we get everybody back, things will be going in a positive note. So far I love Chicago. Things have been great. The team they've been really great, welcoming and kind. And I think we're going to get better over the course of the season.
The U.S. is playing their final quote unquote send off game there as they travel from the Midwest to California, which is not a bit of a send off. So we're hoping to all get out there for that game so we can see Brianna and we can see one of the great cities, which I have not spent as much time in as I would like. The literal only thing I've done is go to one Wrigley game, go to Soldier Field one time, and then the boat tour. And the boat tour is the best.
There's no better place in the summer than Chicago. Chicago in the summer is the best place I've ever been. Incredible.
Everybody says that, whether they live there or not.
They're right.
So I'm so excited to experience it. I can't wait to go to the send-off game. Hopefully things will look a lot better and brighter.
Well, you're only 6 weeks away from summer. So at a minimum, it's going to be the best place to be in the world when we get there. So thank you to all of you who are here live with us in the chat. Thank you to Frank, as always. Huge legend. Preston says England or Spain to win the whole thing. England just lost to Japan, so you never know. And I think Spain drew Egypt today. So I guess either don't count March friendlies, or you never know what's going to happen. I'm sure Mauricio Pochettino would prefer if you didn't do the first one, but whatever floats your boat is your option. We've got more shows coming up this week. Our NWSL show is going to come out on the Soccerwise channels later on Wednesday. Myself and Jordan reminiscing a little on the Denver time and then talking about a lot of what we've seen. We did our first power rankings of the season, which we'll keep updating every week going forward. Doyle's going to join me for a little USMNT segment added to this for some reaction coming out of the camp. And then we've got some interviews coming up for the MLS weekend that is coming back around the corner this weekend. So thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to you two so much for joining me for this one. Thank you to Douglas for being on the sticks late into the night. And we'll talk to you all again very